Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and patch 11.1 is set to bring in a bunch of new class changes with some fairly sizable reworks and revamps. One of the classes that's a major focus of this update has been the class of Hunter. Whether we're looking at marksmanship, beast mastery, survival, or its individual hero specs from Sentinel, Dark Ranger, or Pack Leader, all of them are going through a number of changes, some big and some small. And it's been a while since we actually taken a look at the class of Hunter over on this channel since our last refresher, as they continue to add additional improvements and updates for the class, and I wanted to see what it looks like right now, how it performs, as we're inching closer to the release of the patch 11.1. While we don't have an official release date, the recent PTR build has become a candidate build, which means that all signs point to this thing releasing very soon. Question is the class of Hunter gonna be ready for Season 2 content? And I want to take a look at this class with those most recent changes and how it feels and how it performs and how popular all specs are right now over on the PTR realms, and take a much closer look at this class in a more holistic way. As always, if you guys want to see more regular class updates for the patch 11.1, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe, but otherwise, let's dive right in. So it's been a hot second since we've taken a look at anything new that happened with the class of Hunter. They saw a huge bulk of new class revamps all together for the patch 11.1, with massive talent swaps for survival, Beastmaster, but also the biggest one, which is marksmanship, plus a ton of hero talent changes since then. And last time we took a look at them, they actually restored some functionality that players really wanted for marksmanship, but it looks like this time around for these last few builds, they've mostly been just trying to fine-tune the damage output of this class, mostly with a variety of different buffs all across the board. Starting alphabetical with Beast Mastery Hunter, they're seeing a slight adjustment to their tier set, where they're increasing the effectiveness of Bestial Wrath, increasing their damage from 25% up to 30%, a decent gain overall. The damage of Kill Command also goes up by 10%, but where there is a gain, there's also some reduction as well. For Beast Mastery specifically, it has to do with their tier set, the jackpot mechanic and pet being able to be amped up in this mutagenic empowerment mechanic. Your spells and abilities have a chance to jackpot that fires a barb shot at 100% effectiveness. Casual Bestial Wrath always hits jackpot, and with a foresight, hitting a jackpot guarantee infuses your pet with a mutagen, causing its auto attacks to deal additional nature damage to its target and up to additional 5 nearby enemies, so it has a little bit of a single target, and also cleave capabilities as well. Mutagenic attacks reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath. The cooldown reduction of Bestial Wrath is what saw a bit of a hit this week. Instead of reducing it by 1 second per auto attack, now it's down to half a second per auto attack, but the value of Bestial Wrath as a burst ability did go up a little bit. They also reducing the duration of this mutagenic effect where the pet does additional auto attack damage, so the duration is 8 seconds instead of 10 seconds, but this is why they increase the damage of your kill command, I guess, to supplement it. I am not 100% sure if this is overall a gain or a loss, or maybe this is just them taking some power out of the tier set and putting back into baseline Beast Mastery natively, so that maybe hunters have a bit better damage until they get their tier set where they still see a distant gain, or maybe this is an overall nerf. But I just knew that the tier set was technically a very decent one, plus together with all the other Beast Mastery damage buffs that we saw initially, it was looking like Beast Mastery was going to be, and still looks like it is going to be, a very highly competitive top tier choice, at least when it comes to content like Mythic Plus and raids. That being said, none of the tuning has been final, but BM is still a very strong competitor. Now, we did see Beast Mastery initially angle itself as a pack leader going forward, especially after the rework that pack leader has gotten. So part of the pack leader mechanic reworks that they did to make it more thematic is you now have this Rexar type of gameplay about you. Whenever you press kill command every 25 seconds, you either summon a wyvern, a boar, or a bear to your side. Each one of these pets has a different mechanic locked behind them. So after a few seconds, whenever I do get my kill command, it actually shows you what pet you're gonna get. So wyvern just increases your overall damage, and it stacks with every single one of your pet's auto attacks and every one of your abilities up to 20 stacks, up to 20% additional damage for you and your pet. The boar charges through targets, causing certain abilities, for Beastmaster being Cobra Shot, to actually cleave multiple targets, where normally you don't really press Cobra Shot as a Beastmaster Hunter too often. with the board charging through your targets, you might actually want to, because it gives you pretty sizable cooldown reduction on that kill command. It allows you to aggressively AoE multiple targets at the same time, which isn't that bad. I mean, Cobra Shot actually has some kind of a gameplay mechanic to it. It does mean you'll have to be very, very careful when it comes to your focus generation, because the board will charge 3 times with a delay in between each one of those charges. So you kind of want to make sure you're not wasting those Cobra AoE cleaves. The bear basically summons an additional dire beast to your side, which cleaves enemies, does a massive bleed. If I could find it right here. The bear, yeah, red flesh is pretty strong. Also has beast cleave, since it is a dire beast, and the talents that function with dire beast end up buffing up all of those dire beast abilities. So the bear is actually just an extra pet for beast mastery, and that bear specifically is why it's so good for BM. Even though it doesn't always proc, since all these pets rotate, you get the wyvern, the boar, the bear, and they kind of just change out from time to time. Even if the bear isn't up 100% of the time, it is highly effective in your overall damage contribution. This is why for BM Hunter, it looked like it were going to go pack leader and then stay pack leader the entire time. But they're trying to see if they can give Beast Mastery a little bit more of this playability between Dark Ranger and Pack Leader, which I really like to see. They may need to be doing some additional supplemental tuning in order to make these a little bit more even, but with Pack Leader, Bear specifically does get his damage reduced by 20% as of these most recent builds, which still, Bear is highly effective. It does a ton of damage. The Bear is an incredibly good pet, and it still does a ton for Beast Mastery Hunter, but it's no longer as incredibly effective as it was. It was just doing a ton, ludicrous amounts of damage, but now it's going to do a decent bit of damage, so it's not completely out of the window in terms of how good it is. But yeah, it's just no longer like a default insane pet with insane amount of damage. But even again, like, its low uptime, it still does a ton of damage and can easily spike above some of your baseline pets pretty easily all on its own, especially in content like Mythic Plus Dungeons and AoE, where it has a Dire Beast cleave capabilities. Not only has the nerf in Pack Leader a little with that Bear mechanic, they're buffing up Dark Ranger a little bit though, with the actual Black Arrow ability, which is the whole main component of Dark Ranger, buffing it back up by 10%. And I actually kind of prefer Beast Mastery as a Dark Ranger, even though I know Pack Leader is very, very strong. I kind of like Beast Mastery after these reworks with the Dark Ranger playstyle. I feel like right now, after they adjusted Barb Shot so you don't have to spam it for nearly as often, I feel like I now have a few more globals to get that Black Arrow cleaving with the Hunter Spray in order to get quite a bit of damage output. And after they did a pretty big, decent enough rework with Dark Ranger, especially with the Withering Fire, where instead of having a proc off of every 3 bestial rats, it now procs off of Call of the Wild. It now feels like Beastmaster has a bit more dedicated AoE burst, which feels really, really good to play into. I actually kind of prefer the punchiness of the Dark Ranger playstyle rather than the Pack Leader, which isn't as passive anymore like it used to be. But I think for the most part, outside of the boar, it still is a fairly passive playstyle outside of that one specific pet with that Cobra Shot cleave mechanic. I actually prefer Dark Ranger in terms of just the flow of it, but yeah, Pack Leader and Dark Ranger definitely had a bit of a difference in damage output between one another, and hopefully this type of adjustment does make him a little bit more even, so it still becomes more of a choice of which hero spec you want to play. Although I'm sure with this whole bestial and pet based tier set, I'm pretty sure that Pack Leader is looking like the favorite choice, at least as of this moment, until we see some additional tuning. Then we take a second look at the Marksmanship Hunter, which has gone through also a number of changes over these past few weeks, mostly damage tuning. The spec itself saw the biggest rework within its talent tree, but also a little bit, I feel like, of growing pains. For a good bit, a couple of weeks, I've been watching like the Hunter community finding out and trying out a variety of different builds, a variety of different talents, because there's so many new ways of how you can construct marksmanship. Though while players were trying to figure out what is the best build for marksmanship, like what feels good for Mythic Plus, what feels good for raids, a lot of players did feel like it was kind of looking a little undertuned at the very beginning on the PTR. Like numbers wise, you could achieve decent damage, but it just didn't feel like it was quite like as easy to put off as BM. So they've been buffing them up all across the board, with aim shot being buffed up by 5%, which feels like it's not a lot, but there's so many different ways to modify the damage output of your aim shot. Even a 5% damage buff plus all these different modifiers, I feel like ends up being a fairly decent buff. Spotter's Mark itself, the actual Spotter's Mark damage bonus or baseline damage bonus has been increased from 10% to 20%. So the actual spotter's mark can be further amplified with some of the other talents, and I feel like this one you actually feel a decent bit. Even though I feel like the uptime of the spotter's mark could still be a little bit better, 32% is a lot better than where it was, down to like 20% or even 14% that I saw some of the different logs. So that does feel a bit better, but I do hope they could make it so it could be up on your target a little bit more often. Some of the other talent rows that weren't as effective, like Windrunner's Quiver, have also been adjusted, where precise shots can now stack up to 2 times, but the damage bonus is reduced to 90%. This would also change in functionality a little bit. I believe in the first few builds, unless I'm misremembering it correctly, it used to be that you could stack up the precise shot buff twice, and then your next 2 arcane shots would consume each stack. You know, each shot would consume a stack. But now they changed it to that a single arcane shot consumes both of them, which can make arcane shots and multi-shots hit a lot harder. So basically, it doesn't change the flow of the spec anymore, where precise shots will just buff up 1 arcane shot or 1 multi-shot, but you can get 2 stacks, but still you're firing off a single bullet either way. This is a lot better than having to go aim shot, arcane shot, and then now you feel like your focus is a little bit off, and then you rapid fire, but by then maybe your aim shot is going back off cooldown. That felt a little awkward for single target. In some cases, you would cannibalize those arcane shot, precise shot procs and just do more aim shots and rapid fires. In AoE with multi-shots, you just basically use multi-shot to proc trick shots, but you weren't really like investing fully into it. But this change, this actually feels a lot better. I feel like this change allows you for better arcade shots, better multi-shots, and overall the damage you put up with both of those abilities without necessarily disrupting the flow of the spec. Even if the damage of those abilities is not nearly a huge portion of your overall damage, it does feel at least a little bit better to play with. They also amped up True Shot by quite a bit. True Shot, they wanted to be a big cooldown that massively increases your crit damage as a marksmanship hunter. So it looks like marksmanship is really heavily going to lean into crit damage mechanics. Not only do they get penetrating shots with a crit damage, it also increased base off of your crit chance, but now during your true shot, so if I were to talent into something like double tap, which is kind of skewing the tooltip for true shot, the baseline true shot tip now reads: increase your critical strike chance by 10% and critical strike damage by 20% for 15 seconds. Plus it reduces the cooldown of your aim shot and rapid fire by 60%. Consuming spotter mark reduces the cooldown of true shot by 2 seconds. Together with Sentinel, you can actually get some decent CDR because you could further reduce the cooldown of that ability by 15 more seconds, and overall you can have a very short downtime of your true shot while still maintaining high impact and high amount of punchiness behind the ability. But when you play it with a talent of unerring vision, which right now, at least for PvE content, seems to be the preferred choice, true shot will now increase your critical strike chance by an additional 10%, so 20% chance to crit, and a critical strike damage by 20%, so 40% chance to crit. Additionally, calling the shot reduces the true shot cooldown by an additional 1 second, so you can get even better cooldown reduction on this ability, which feels incredibly good. It just supercharges your true shot to the nth degree, and I'm a big fan of this type of playstyle in general. And overall, I think as of the last few weeks, Marksmanship Hunter feels a little bit better to play. At least give it a chance and give it a try in dungeons recently. It does feel like it has a decent flow. That being said, I did try out a different talent that doesn't go into a volley, but apparently has a little bit better output when it comes to single target damage or AoE damage, like a nice middle cleave type of build. Of course, you can go full AoE, but apparently that sacrifices quite a decent bit of your single target, so it looks like Marksmanship might have a few new builds available with this brand new talent tree, as they're trying to make sure all of your capstone abilities and all the different sides of your capstones, like this whole bottom section with the Eagle's accuracy, improved streamline, focused aim, killer mark, and Windrunner Quiver. They're trying to make all those pretty solid, and they're trying to make the right hand side with bullseye, unarmed winds, small game hunter, bullet hell. They're trying to tune these abilities up quite a bit to make sure that either side is as strong as the other, or at least try to tune them, and we've been seeing buffs over these past few weeks to try to make either side a lot more favorable and a lot more relevant for you to want to invest points into, which I think is really good to see. I'm sure that by the time the spec comes out, there will be some talents that will probably be not as strong as others, but as long as they continue to tune anything that is weak, I think that is good going forward for Marksmanship Hunter, and hopefully, if anything, we'll see a bunch of build variety out of the spec. And even with how dominant Beastmaster is looking right now over on the PTR, far, we have been seeing a few more logs of players playing as marksmanship and even performing really well as marksmanship hunter. So it might come down just to a single tuning pass to potentially equalize these specs or possibly put marksmanship slightly ahead of BM, which has been doing incredibly well at the very beginning. But with none of the tuning passes for any of the classes hitting PTR yet, it is very possible they could potentially downgrade the effectiveness of Beast Mastery further, but only time will tell if that's exactly what they're going to be going for. But from there, we have the spec of Survival Hunter, which has gone through also a number of tuning changes. Not too many talent adjustments this time around, but it is them trying to make some of these other hero talent options and talent options just a little bit better. One of those things is, and this is one of the things they've done recently in the last build, is try to reduce the uptime of Wildfire Bomb a little bit while increasing its overall damage. So you're not going to be getting as many resets and as fast a cooldown reduction on Wildfire Bomb, unless you're playing pack leader specifically, but they're trying to reduce it down a little bit and are trying to restructure some of that rotational clutter into the abilities like Raptor Strike. A lot of players that love Survival Hunter do find it a little bit overwhelming in terms of the number of abilities you're given as part of your basic combat rotation, as sometimes it can feel like you're just getting flooded with so many different abilities you gotta press, and there's just way too many things you gotta do at once. So they're trying to kind of simplify the rotational clutter of the spec. And part of that includes transferring as much damage, as much power into the ability of Raptor Strike, but also making Raptor Strike much more useful outside of just pure single target situations. So Raptor Strike goes up by 10% in terms of its overall damage. That's pretty good. Combined together with the tier set that they have, whenever you Wildfire Bomb, there's a chance to end your winning streak. When that happens, your next Raptor Strike deals 400% increased damage and reduces the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb. So having that ability hit very hard is actually kind of good, and they can also cleave if you're playing pack leader, so that could be incredibly strong. So more damage about Raptor Strike to make it a little bit better does help it out a bit. Wildfire Bomb also sees another 10% damage buff as well, which is also really good to see, even though you don't use the ability nearly as often as you would, except in some key situations. You do get a little bit more amp in it either way. They also are increasing the damage buff for Mongoose Bite as well, increasing Mongoose Bite damage by 30%. So when you take a look at Mongoose Bite, it has a tooltip for 417,000, close to 18,000 if we were to round up, damage on it, while Raptor Strike has 433. The damage numbers between these two buttons is a lot easier, and Mongoose Bite has this damage rampant mechanic with Mongoose Fury that increases damage by 15% per stack, stack it up to 5 times with a 16-second duration. But whenever you press Mongoose Bite, you get a stack of Mongoose Fury. You don't get to refresh the duration of Mongoose Fury, you just get to get additional stacks, and eventually the buff drops off. However, when you play Pack Leader, there's a synergy with the Boar. Whenever you summon the Boar, it refreshes the duration of your Mongoose Fury. And each time the Boar charges has a chance to grant you a stack of Mongoose Fury, and Raptor Strike and Mongoose Fury can cleave multiple targets as well. The cleave damage and the damage amp still works for Raptor Strike, which is what a lot of survival hunters have been doing as of recently, or at least as of the last build. But with this build, the damage both for Mongoose Bite, it does seem like survival may be heading into a Mongoose Bite build on paper. We haven't actually seen that in play so far, because looking at survival hunter logs, it's actually kind of criminal just how few of them there are. There isn't a lot of play as survival hunter on the PTR at all, or at least not a lot of players are interested in logging their experience publicly. Like compared to Beast Mastery, it's a huge list of logs. Marksmanship, not as much as BM, but still a sizable list. Like there's a lot of players testing it out, testing out damage builds, trying their way in dungeons, raids, and everything. But survival is criminally low. So it's hard to tell if Mongoose Bite is going to be the play, but like numerically, it should be stronger. We just haven't really seen a lot of it in circulation overall so far. But if survival does go into a Mongoose Bite build, it potentially could simplify their spec a little bit more, allowing them just to spam Mongoose Bite a lot more aggressively around the pack leader and trying to get the massive cleaves around the playstyle, where basically you would have more like a single target build with a ton of cleave behind it. The other advantage of going for like a Mongoose Bite focused build actually has to do with the pack leader main mechanic of cooldown reduction with dire summons. Kill command reduces the cooldown of Howl of the Pack by 1 second, and Howl of the Pack leader by 1 second. Raptor Strike Strike or Mongoose Bite further reduce the cooldown of the ability also by 1 second. So if you have a playstyle that's really focused on heavy uses of Raptor Strike during your downtime, or Mongoose Bite better yet because you're trying to ramp up that damage with less grenades in between, which do get some cooldown reduction every time you get a Howl of the Pack. You get some major CDR on the grenades. If you're spending more globals on Mongoose Bites and Raptor Strikes, you get to rotate through your pack leader buffs a lot quicker. So you're looking to get Wyvern buffs quicker, and then have the Wyvern buff overlap with the Boar buff, or potentially have the Boar going into the Bear into the Wyvern very quickly. So that would be one of the advantages going for like a full pure Mongoose Bite build, where in a way Mongoose Bite allows you to play with 2 resources. Not only do you play with focus, as well as the variety of different amps that can amplify the damage of Mongoose Bite, but now that ability directly contributes towards your pack leader and the cooldown reduction on your pets, or the additional pets summoned by the pack leader, the Wyvern, the Boar, and the Bear. So in a way, Mongoose Bite now plays around this resource of those pets and the buffs of those pets provide in a very different way. Very similar to how Demonology Warlocks and Destro Warlocks can use those soul shards to summon up more demons with Diabolus. That's kind of like what you'll be able to do with Survival. That focus ends up being, I guess, an indirect resource, and the focus spent by Mongoose Bite ends up being an indirect way for you to get more Howl of the Pack leader, which is, in a sense, I guess you can think of it as like an additional resource or source of damage in a way. So going for a Mongoose heavy build may not be the worst just because of this cooldown reduction for the Howl of the Pack leader, making Pack leader an incredibly good option. So all in all, when it comes to the spec of Survival, on paper, it looks like it should be a lot stronger of a spec. There should be a little bit more playability, especially with the Pack leader playstyle and just how it functions and interacts with the Survival kit. Generally, the talent changes that have gotten recently, even some of the things with like a very slight one with contagious reagents, allowing your Serpent Stings to be applied a little bit more aggressively as you use more Raptor Strikes against the target, plus the recent-ish tier set change that allows Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite to really slam at the target. I mean, Survival Hunter has a much bigger stick going forward into this update, which is really good to see. But with just how little of interactions that we've seen in terms of the spec, as well as the overall PTR, how often we see it show up, it's just hard to tell. It's one of those specs that I think looks really good on paper, and I'm genuinely excited for it going forward for the patch 11.1. I just wish there was a lot more data and a lot more info we could take a look at this playstyle over from the testing realms, but it seems the majority of that time is being spent right now by BM and marksmanship, as those two have the spotlight. But I'm still hopeful that Survival may potentially be a solid option. But if you're excited about Survival and we're potentially thinking about maining this spec going forward, there's just, I feel like, not a lot of data for us to really confirm how good it will be. I think the class of Hunter overall is looking and shaping up to be really solid option for 11.1. If, let's say, you're thinking of a new main or a brand new ult to play, or potentially just wondering if you're playing Hunter right now, how good is this thing looking heading into this next update? It definitely is looking very promising. But if you're looking just to play all in on Survival, hard to tell how good this thing will be. I am hopeful that maybe they'll end up helping it level out and allowing it to really flourish in the next update. I'll be very happy if we saw that out of Survival, but it's still so difficult to tell just how good this thing is going to be. But I still hold out hope. But as always though, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did end up enjoying this video update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community where we go over pretty regularly regarding any new class updates for the patch 11.1. Also, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.